Hey guys, enjoy these new 20 stories. We hope you enjoy them. Let us know your thoughts. And as always, most of you listening aren't subscribed, so please smash that subscribe button and hit that like button too. It's free and does so much for us. We're forever grateful. Now to the stories.
Something was off when she picked Nando's for our first date. Not that Nando's is terrible or anything. I actually like their peri-peri chips more than I should, but it's just weird. First date, and she goes for chicken and malmois. I didn't question it too much though. I met her on an app, and honestly, she seemed chill. Her photos were cute, the conversation flowed, and I was bored of the usual weekend routine. So I figured why not? We agreed to meet at Westfield around 2 in the afternoon on a Saturday. It was packed. I remember being slightly annoyed by the crowd, people bumping into each other with shopping bags like it was a war zone made of Primark and Zara. She showed up 10 minutes late, wearing oversized sunglasses and a hoodie that looked like she borrowed it from someone twice her size. Still, she looked good, and I let the lateness slide. We went to Nando's like planned. I offered to pay, partly because I always do on first dates, partly because she'd been going on about how hungry she was, and she didn't argue. She ordered a lot, like more than you'd expect for someone her size. I made a joke about it, she laughed a bit too hard, and the rest of the meal was all right. We talked about uni, her job, random stuff. Nothing too deep. She wasn't super open, and I got the feeling she was holding back, but whatever. Some people just take time. After lunch, I figured we'd walk around a bit, maybe grab a coffee, feel the vibe. That's when she said she needed to pop into a few shops. I thought she meant grabbing a thing or two, but she had other plans. First stop, Zara. She pulled me in by the arm, straight to the women's section, and started picking out clothes like we were on some shopping spree TV show. I stood there holding her coat while she tried on outfits. She asked my opinion a couple times, then disappeared into the fitting room. 20 minutes later, she came out with a handful of stuff and said she was getting all of it. It didn't stop there. Next was Sephora. Then H&M, then some obscure store I'd never even heard of. I watched her rack up item after item like she was preparing for a holiday no one told me about. I wasn't even sure what was going on. I figured maybe she was just comfortable spending money on herself. But right before we left the third shop, she turned to me with this half smile and asked if I could cover this one since her card was being weird. I hesitated. It was like a reflex. I didn't want to look cheap or awkward, so I said yeah, sure, assuming it was a small thing. It was a pair of shoes, 85 pounds. I thought that was it. I thought she'd say she'd pay me back or at least act uncomfortable, but she didn't. She just kept going. It turned into this weird loop of her card not working, or I'll get the next one. And somehow I was paying again. Over and over. By the fourth store, I realized I'd spent almost 500 pounds and hadn't even bought myself a coffee. I wanted to say something, I really did, but I didn't know how. I kept waiting for her to bring it up, to explain. But she didn't. She just acted like this was normal, like we were a couple and I was her wallet. Eventually she said she was tired and wanted to head off. No hug, no thanks for today, nothing. Just a text me later, and then she was gone. I stood there outside the station, still holding the bag from the last shop because she forgot it and asked me to hold it for a sec. She never came back for it. I texted her that night, no reply. I waited 2 days, still nothing. By the third day I knew she was gone. Blocked me on everything. WhatsApp, Instagram, even the app we met on, just vanished. And the stupid part, I wasn't even that into her. It wasn't about heartbreak or getting played emotionally. It was the fact that I'd been used in the most casual way, like I wasn't even a person, just a means to an end. She didn't even pretend to be interested. She didn't flirt. She didn't lead me on. She just showed up, used me, and dipped. I looked her up online, tried to find any trace of her. Nothing. She wasn't even using her real name on the app. The only thing I found was a random tagged photo from someone else's account where she'd been at the same mall, probably on another date. I threw the bag she left into the bin 2 days later. It had some pop from Urban Outfitters in it, still with the tag. I considered returning it, but just couldn't be bothered. Every time I looked at it, I felt like an idiot. Since then, I've been way more cautious. Not just with dating, but with people in general. And yeah, I know it sounds dramatic, but when someone uses you like that, not for your feelings, but for your bank card, it messes with your head in a different way. I still go to Westfield sometimes. walk past that same Nando's. Every time I do, I feel this weird mix of embarrassment and disbelief. Like, how the hell did I not see it? How did I let it happen? But I don't think about it too much now. She's gone. So is the money. I just pay with cash more often these days. I met Tommy through a friend of a friend, which made me feel safer about him than I probably should have. It wasn't some random app guy or someone lurking in my DMs. We were at a mutual's birthday drinks, and he was funny, kind of awkward, but in a cute way. Not overconfident and didn't try too hard. He asked for my number before I left and texted me later that night saying he was glad we met. The first date was pretty normal. Coffee at this little place near my flat. A walk after, a lot of talking about random stuff. He didn't come on too strong, which I liked. I've had enough of those guys who are already talking about our future 10 minutes in. He seemed grounded, polite, actually listened. Date 2, we went bowling. I could tell he was trying harder, dressed up a bit, opened doors for me, complimented me more. I noticed he was a little intense, but I brushed it off as nerves or maybe just someone who liked me a lot. He was messaging more, but still nothing crazy. Just regular good morning stuff and checking in during the day. It was after the third date when things got weird. I was at work, had meetings most of the day, and had barely looked at my phone. When I finally did, I had 14 texts from him. Most of them were pretty normal, but then they started sounding stressed. The last few were asking if I was okay, if he'd done something wrong, if I was mad at him. All in the space of 5 hours, I replied saying I was just busy and thought it'd be fine. People get anxious, especially early on. I told myself he just liked me and was overthinking things. But that set the tone for everything after. The next few days, he started calling more, not just once a day. 3, sometimes 4 times. If I didn't answer, he'd follow up with a bunch of messages. Some of them were nice, some were weird. He'd say things like he felt sick not hearing from me or that he couldn't sleep thinking I was upset with him. This was only 2 weeks in. Then he started showing up. First time he was outside my flat on a Saturday morning. Said he was just in the area and thought we could grab coffee. I was still in pajamas, had bed hair, hadn't even had tea yet. But I felt too awkward to say no. We hung out for a bit. I said I had stuff to do and he left. The next weekend, same thing. Unannounced, standing outside my door. This time with takeaway breakfast and flowers. He wasn't being aggressive, but I didn't love how he kept doing it. I started turning off my location sharing on apps, but I was too polite to bring it up directly. He started asking more about my schedule, like exact times, where I'd be, who I was with. If I went out, he'd text nonstop, even if I told him in advance. He didn't like when I didn't answer immediately. One time I was at dinner with 2 of my friends and came back to 27 messages. He said it felt like I was ignoring him on purpose. I started feeling anxious every time my phone buzzed. Like I had to keep updating him or he'd spiral. It was draining. I told him I needed some space, gently, like I was walking on eggshells. He said he understood, but the next day he sent me a playlist he made about how much he missed me and couldn't stop thinking about me. By week 5, I was starting to back away completely. I replied slower, kept my answers short, stopped meeting up. He noticed. That's when things turned a bit darker. He started guilt-tripping. Said he was falling for me and couldn't understand how I could just push him away. Said he'd never felt like this about anyone before and that I was the one. I ignored a few of his calls one day. I was at work in a planning meeting, and he sent this long message saying he was outside. At my office. I didn't even know how he found out where I worked. I'd never told him the name of the company. Maybe I'd mentioned it once casually, but I never gave him the address. He waited outside for 2 hours. I didn't go out. I was panicking quietly behind my desk, pretending nothing was happening. I kept telling myself he'd leave, that he'd realize how insane it was and go home. But he didn't. Then, the worst part. I was mid-presentation, proper big deal stuff. I'm standing at the front, slides up, team staring at me, and then the door swings open. There he is. Tommy. Walking into the meeting room like he's looking for a bathroom. I froze. The room froze. He just stood there, looked right at me, and said my name like I'd gone missing. One of the guys from the team stood up and walked toward him, trying to guide him out. Tommy started saying I wasn't answering my phone, that he was worried, that something must be wrong because I always text back. I wanted to sink into the floor. They got him out. I said it was a misunderstanding, made up some excuse, Then locked myself in the bathroom for 10 minutes because I thought I was going to be sick. HR got involved. They asked if I wanted to report it. I said no. I just wanted it to go away. That night, he sent a voice note crying, proper sobbing, saying he'd messed everything up and was only trying to care for me. I didn't reply. I blocked his number. Locked him on everything. He made a new account a few days later and messaged me again. That was the last one. I ignored it. Nothing. I haven't heard from him since, but I still get nervous walking home at night. I still check around corners before opening my front door. I still can't hear the WhatsApp notification sound without flinching a little. So yeah, that's Tommy. Met him at a party. Thought he was sweet. He wasn't. I didn't think much of it when she asked me to meet her family. Honestly, at first, I thought it was just one of those things where she wanted me to meet her sister or maybe have dinner with her mom. We'd been seeing each other for maybe a month and a half. Nothing too serious, just casual dates. Dinner, coffee, random walks, a few nights in. She was cool. Her name was Destiny, which already felt a little dramatic, but I didn't really care. She had this energy that pulled you in. Super confident, always had something to say, kind of chaotic, but in an entertaining way. We met on a Sunday late afternoon at this little cafe near her place. She said her family was doing a barbecue that evening and asked if I wanted to come by. At first I was like, why not? I wasn't doing anything and I thought maybe I'd meet a couple people, have a burger, call it a night. I didn't get nervous until we were halfway there and she started talking about how important this was. Important how? She said something about them being really excited to meet me, which already felt a bit heavy, but I figured maybe she just talked about me more than I thought. Then she said her mom had a million questions, and I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. We got there around 6, and her uncle was already grilling in the back garden. The second we walked in, it felt like everyone knew me. Her mom hugged me, and her dad shook my hand like we were sealing some serious deal. And her aunt said something about finally getting to meet the guy Destiny's been going on about. I smiled and went along with it, but in my head I was like, wait, what has she been saying? Then it got weird, real fast. Her little cousin ran up and asked if we were getting married in the summer. I kind of laughed it off, thinking he was just being a weird kid. But then her mom said she'd already started looking at venues online just in case. That's what hit me. She told them we were engaged. I just stood there, frozen. I thought maybe I misheard or misunderstood. I looked at her, waiting for her to laugh or correct them or say it was a joke, but she didn't. She smiled and gave my arm this little squeeze like everything was fine, like this was all normal. I pulled her aside into the kitchen and asked her what was going on. She acted like it wasn't a big deal. Said it made her parents happy, that it wasn't hurting anyone, that we might get there eventually anyway. So what's the harm? What's the harm? I'd been seeing her for 6 weeks. We hadn't even had a serious talk yet. And now her whole family thought I'd propose. I tried to stay calm. I didn't want to cause a scene in someone else's house, but it was so awkward. Every conversation was loaded. Her aunt kept asking about wedding colors. Her dad asked if I had savings. Her cousin asked how many kids we were planning to have. I was stuck in this nightmare loop of pretending to be someone's fiancé without ever agreeing to it. And she played along the whole time. She sat on my lap, called me babe in front of everyone, told her grand that I made the best pasta and that I always rubbed her feet after long shifts, which I had never ever done. She built this whole story about our relationship that didn't match anything real, and everyone believed it. At one point I tried to leave, said I had work early the next day. Her mom packed me food, her dad said we should come by again soon, and her cousin gave me a drawing that said congrats. I walked to the car in total silence. The second we got in, I told her I couldn't do this, that she crossed a line. She looked at me like I was overreacting, said I was being dramatic, said it was just a white lie and her family was happy now. She asked me why I was making a big deal out of something so small. I dropped her off and didn't text her for a few days. She messaged me nonstop, asking when we were going to see each other again, acting like nothing had happened. I finally replied and said I needed space, that I felt weird about the whole thing. She went quiet for about a week. Then, out of nowhere, she texted me a picture of a ring. Said she found it online and wanted my opinion. I didn't even reply. Blocked her after that. I didn't even know how to explain it to my friends. I didn't want to say I got fake engaged to someone I barely knew. It wasn't loud crazy. The kind where someone yells or breaks things. It was the quiet kind. The unsettling kind. Where someone rewrites reality around you and expects you to just go along with it like it's normal. Like you've always been in on it. And I still think about that barbecue sometimes, how I smiled through it. Answered questions about weddings and kids while my brain was screaming. Her family probably still thinks we broke off an engagement. I still drive past her street sometimes when I go to the gym. Every time I see the corner, I feel this tight knot in my stomach. Like I accidentally walked into someone else's fantasy and got stuck in it for way too long. That was destiny. And yeah, it really was. I probably should have known something was off the first time you wore my hoodie without asking. It was this green oversized one I always wore around the flat when I couldn't be bothered to dress properly. I walked into the kitchen one morning and there he was, just standing there like it was normal, eating cereal with my hoodie on like he'd lived there for years. We'd only been seeing each other for a couple weeks. His name was Ashton. We met through a friend at a flat party, and he was one of those really chill, quiet guys who kind of slips into your life before you even realize it. At first, he was sweet, brought snacks over, walked me home, said nice things but never laid it on too thick. The kind of guy who always seems like he's got nothing going on but still manages to be everywhere at once. I like that he didn't talk too much. I thought it meant he was just calm. The first couple dates were normal. We went to a food market, watched movies at mine, stayed up late just chatting about random things. And then it slowly started. He started staying over more and more. At first, it was a couple of nights a week, then suddenly it was every night. He never asked. He just stayed. He started keeping a toothbrush in my bathroom, left some of his clothes in a drawer like we had that conversation, which we hadn't. I didn't really mind at first. It was winter and I liked the company. It was kind of comforting to have someone there. He cooked sometimes, cleaned dishes once or twice. Nothing major. He didn't have a job, but he said he was sorting stuff out, and I didn't want to be that person who judged someone for not having it all figured out. Then I started noticing things. Small things at first. A charger gone. My favorite mug missing. I thought maybe I just left them somewhere or let them out and forgot. But then it got weirder. A pair of shoes disappeared from my hallway. A gold ring my nan gave me wasn't in the drawer I always kept it in. I started going through my stuff just to double check, thinking maybe I was just scatterbrained. Ashton said I was probably just misplacing things. I wanted to believe that, I really did. But then I noticed my Bluetooth speaker was gone. It wasn't even something I used often, but I knew exactly where I left it, and it just wasn't there anymore. I asked him if he'd seen it. He looked me dead in the eye and said no, maybe I lent it to someone. I hadn't. That's when I got this horrible sinking feeling in my chest, like something was very wrong, but I didn't want to say it out loud. It got worse. I started noticing things on Gumtree that looked exactly like mine. A mirror, my old Nike trainers, even the hoodie he wore that first morning. The posts didn't use real names, but the photos were taken in front of a white wall that looked a lot like mine. I looked at them over and over, zooming in on the background, the floor tiles, the plug sockets. It was my flat. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew. I confronted him when he came over that night. I didn't scream or go off or anything. I just told him straight that I knew he'd been taking my stuff and selling it. He stared at me like I'd said something insane. Then he laughed and told me I was being paranoid. Said he'd never steal from me. That was the last time I saw him. I went to the bathroom for like 5 minutes to calm down, and when I came back out, he was gone. Left the door unlocked. Took the little bag of clothes he kept at mine and just disappeared. I checked my drawers again and realized my old camera was gone too. My cheap DSLR that I hadn't used in a year but still loved. I went back on Gumtree and there it was, listed for £90. No box, just used but works great. I reported the post. I tried messaging the seller, but the account went dark the next day. Deleted. I didn't hear from him again. He blocked me on everything, like I didn't exist. Like the whole thing had been a weird little mission for him. Get close, get inside, take what he could, disappear. I felt sick. Not just because of what he did, but because of how slowly and casually he did it. No force. No obvious warning signs. Just someone creeping into your space and making it feel like they belong there until they've taken enough. And you're left with empty drawers and this horrible twist in your stomach. I changed my locks after that. Started keeping my valuables in one of those small safes you get off Amazon. I told my friends, but no one really knew what to say. It wasn't dramatic enough to call the police. Not enough proof. Not enough money lost to bother. Just enough to mess with your head and make you feel like your space isn't really yours anymore. Sometimes I still check Gumtree when I can't sleep. I scroll through the listings just to see if anything familiar shows up. I haven't seen anything in a while, but that feeling hasn't fully gone. That was Ashton. He said he liked my vibe. Turns out he just liked my stuff. I thought she was cool at first. I met Lisa at this local pub quiz night. I wasn't even planning to go. My mate dragged me along because his team was one person short. She was on the team sitting next to us, and I only started talking to her because she accidentally took my pint. She was pretty confident, kind of intense in a fun way. Like she was fully in the moment, always making jokes, always leading the conversation. We talked after the quiz and ended up leaving together. No weird vibes, just two people walking in the same direction, sharing a bag of chips, and talking about how dumb the quiz questions were. She asked for my number, which felt kind of rare these days, and I gave it without thinking twice. The first few dates were all right. We went to a food truck event the first time, then a late night coffee shop near hers the next week. She was into weird documentaries and conspiracy theories, but not in a scary way. More like, isn't it funny how mad the world is? She'd always have these random stories and little rants, and I'd just sit and listen. She had a strong personality, and I guess I liked that at the time. I didn't realize until later how quickly strong could turn into controlling. About 2 weeks in, we started hanging out more often. She was calling a lot, messaging all day, but I didn't really see it as a red flag at the time. I was replying back, keeping up with the conversations going along with it. She came over to my place a few times, met a couple of my mates, and everything seemed fine. She laughed a lot, was good with people, and honestly, no one saw it coming. Then she started getting weird when I went out. The first time was when I went to the cinema with a friend. It was planned ages ago, and I even told her about it the day before. Halfway through the film, I checked my phone and saw 8 missed calls and a bunch of messages asking where I was, who I was with, why I wasn't replying. I thought maybe something happened, like an emergency or something serious, but nope. She was just angry. She said I was ignoring her on purpose, that I could have texted during the movie. I tried explaining, but she flipped it back on me every time. From then on, things shifted. If I was out without her, she'd blow up my phone. If I didn't answer right away, she'd say I was clearly hiding something. One night, I went to a mate's birthday drinks, literally just a few people at a bar, and she showed up outside, said she just happened to be nearby. She pulled me to the side and said she didn't like how some of the girls that were looking at me. One of them was my friend's girlfriend. After that night, she said she didn't want me going out without her. Not even just parties, like she didn't want me going to the gym at a certain time because she said she knew what kind of girls hang around there. If I posted anything on my story, in something basic like my lunch or walking my dog, she'd message straight away asking where I was and who I was with. She started accusing me of things I hadn't even done, saying I was flirting with people online, that I must have been talking to other girls before we met, that I probably still was. I'd wake up to paragraphs. She'd get annoyed if I took too long to respond. Even if I was at work, she'd say I was prioritizing everyone else. Then it got worse. She'd randomly start shouting during arguments, full on yelling even if we were in public. Once she did it in the car while we were parked outside my place, saying I looked too happy after seeing an old uni friend at the cafe earlier. She said I smiled in a way I never smile at her. That's the kind of stuff she was arguing about. Facial expressions. It got to the point where I felt like I had to check in constantly just to avoid her flipping out. If I didn't, I knew I'd get a rant. If I did, she'd find something wrong with the way I said things. I couldn't win. I started canceling plans just to keep her calm. My mates started asking if I was okay. I stopped answering their calls after a while because I didn't want to lie and say everything was fine. One night I told her I was staying in. I just wanted a quiet evening to myself. She kept asking to come over and I kept saying no. She showed up anyway. Rang my bell nonstop, then started calling and leaving voicemails like I was ignoring her on purpose. I didn't let her in and that set her off even more. The next morning she messaged me saying I was disrespecting everything we built. Built what? We'd only been seeing each other for like 6 weeks. I knew I had to end it. I'd been thinking about it for a while, but I didn't know how she'd take it. I was honestly nervous. I didn't want a big scene. I messaged her saying I needed space. She replied with a full meltdown. Voice notes, long paragraphs, saying she gave everything and I was throwing it away. That no one would ever understand her like I did. That I used her energy and then ran off. I didn't reply. She messaged for another week, then stopped. That was the end of it. No big final blowout. Just silence. I deleted everything, changed my socials, told my friends if she ever reached out to just ignore it. I haven't heard from her since. I don't know if she moved on or just moved to the next person. Sometimes when I go out now, I catch myself checking over my shoulder. I still don't think posting online. It sounds stupid, but that constant pressure she put on me didn't just disappear overnight. It stuck around for a bit. That was Lisa. Started with chips outside a pub. Ended with me feeling like a prisoner in my own life. I wasn't even supposed to go out that night. I had work early the next day, but my roommate said I was turning into a weird little ghost who never left the apartment. She literally pulled my phone out of my hands and signed me up for this dumb speed dating thing they were having in the basement of some hipster bowling alley downtown. I didn't want to go, but whatever. Figured I'd talk to some weirdos, grab a few drink tickets, maybe make fun of it later. That's when I met Spencer. He didn't look crazy. That's what gets me. He looked normal, wore a stupid pattern button up with tiny strawberries on it, which honestly should have been a red flag, but it kind of made him stand out in a harmless way. His hair was clean. He smiled a lot. Too much, maybe. But at that point, I just thought he was nervous. He told me he worked in tech but didn't believe in AI, which didn't make sense, but I laughed anyway. He was weird, but not like dangerous weird. Just someone who probably had too many tote bags at home and listened to podcasts about mushrooms. After that night, he messaged me. Nothing intense. Just a hey, good to meet you. We texted a bit. I was bored. He asked me out. I said yeah. We met at this old diner outside the city where they still let you write your order on a slip and put it in a little spinning wheel thing. He talked too much. Like, wouldn't stop. He kept looping back to stories I'd already heard. Some trip to Portland, how his old roommate stole his blender, stuff about his fasting window like anyone cared. But I was already there, so I just nodded and laughed in the right places. I figured I'd make an excuse after the food came. When I said I had to leave, he just blinked real slow and said he'd walk me out. Fine. Whatever. He hugged me way too long, but again, I didn't want to make it a thing. Sometimes dudes don't get boundaries. Didn't mean he was evil. Wrong. Then I got home and he'd already texted me 3 times. Just little stuff. Hope you got home okay. You looked really nice, had fun. Fine. I didn't reply. I was tired. Next day, he sent me a meme, then a playlist, then a photo of the diner menu with some hearts drawn on it in markup. I didn't even know you could do that on iPhone. I told him I was busy, that I didn't really feel a connection, but it was nice meeting him. He left me on read. I thought that was it. But then a few days later, he liked my old post. Not just old, like months old. A story highlight from when I dyed my hair blonde. It was buried under all my travel stuff. He was digging. Then he liked a comment my friend left under a pic from 3 years ago. She didn't even remember writing it. Then he started showing up. First, it was the cafe near my apartment. He was just there, reading a book, sipping a gross-looking tea thing with chia seeds floating in it like frog eggs. He didn't say anything, just smile like we run into each other naturally. I waved. I didn't sit, I kept walking. Then I saw him at the dog park. I don't have a dog. Neither does he. He was standing there watching the corgis like he was studying them. I dipped. Then he showed up at my gym. My actual gym. The one way across town that you have to buzz into. He said he joined recently because it seemed chill. I don't know how he knew I went there. I never posted about it. Not once. I stopped going. Started working out at home. Kept my blinds closed. Muted him on everything. One night I was coming home from a friend's place. It was late. I was walking fast. Street was quiet except for the buzz of the traffic lights and some guy trying to fix his scooter tire in the distance. I turned the corner and there he was, just standing near my building's entrance, staring at a bush like it was talking to him. He said he was just out for a walk. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped my keys. I didn't even say anything, just ran inside and locked every door I could lock. I didn't see him for a while after that. It was like he disappeared. which honestly made it worse because I kept thinking he'd show up again. Every time I left the house, I felt like something was watching me, but not in the fun movie way. Like I was walking around with an open wound and waiting for something to crawl in. Then I caught him trying to unlock the back door of our building. It was 6 a.m. and I was getting up early to grab groceries before the rush. I saw him in the alley, messing with the keypad like it owed him money. He looked pale, like he hadn't slept, like he hadn't eaten. Just there in the morning light, hunched over, muttering numbers under his breath like he was guessing a password from a dream. I didn't think. I stormed up to him and said his name. He turned around so fast he almost fell over, and that's what happened. He just froze, like a deer or a little kid caught doing something awful. And then, like his body gave out, he wet himself. Not a little, like full-on puddle, and then he started crying. No sound. Just tears and pee and shaking hands like he didn't know it was real anymore. I didn't say anything else. I took a picture of him. I backed up. I called my landlord. I called the cops. I called everyone. They got him on trespassing. Apparently, he had a notebook full of drawings. Not violent, not threatening. Just pages of my face. In different expressions. Asleep, laughing, scared, eating, like he was trying to memorize me. Like he wanted to crawl inside my life and wear it like a hoodie. They let him go with a warning. I moved, got a new number, nuked my socials, started over. Sometimes I still see guys in strawberry shirts, and I feel like puking. I still can't listen to the playlist he made. Not because it reminds me of him, but because the last song fades out with someone whispering a name. And it wasn't his. It was mine. I thought dating Anna was gonna be chill. Honestly, I wasn't even looking for anything serious. Just wanted someone to hang out with, maybe binge some shows, eat takeout, talk about dumb stuff. Anna seemed cool at first. Quiet, a little mysterious, but not in a bad way. More like she didn't overshare, which was a nice change from the usual chatter. Our first date was at this weird little cafe that looked like it hadn't changed since the 70s. Walls covered in fake ivy and old vinyl posters. Anna ordered some herbal tea that smelled like wet leaves and maybe dirt. I thought it was weird, but she sipped it like it was the best thing ever. I ordered a double espresso because I needed to stay awake after work. She didn't mind that I was a little jittery. We talked about dumb stuff at first. Music, movies, nothing too deep. But I could tell she was watching me like she was studying every little move I made. Kind of weird, but not creepy. More like focused. I liked the attention. It felt special. We went out a few more times. Dinners, walks, late night talks. Nothing major, nothing wild. Just normal stuff, right? Then the weirdness started. I noticed my hair was acting funny. Not in the way it normally does after you forget to get a haircut for a couple weeks. No, this was different. It was uneven, like someone snuck in and chopped random chunks out. At first I thought it was just me overthinking. Maybe I messed up when I tried to cut my bangs one morning. But every time I looked in the mirror, there was less hair on one side, or a weird patch near the back. I joked about it with my friends. Said Anna was a secret stylist. They laughed. I laughed too. But inside I was kind of freaked. Then I started waking up with little clumps of hair on my pillow. Not just a few strands, like handfuls. Like something was biting it off. I didn't have any pets that could do that. I wasn't sick. I hadn't changed shampoo. No allergies, no itching. Just hair disappearing. One night, I decided to catch the weirdo red-handed. I set my phone to record while I pretended to be asleep. I was half expecting nothing to happen, just wasting my time. But then, around 3 a.m., I heard the creak of my bedroom door. Slow, careful, like someone didn't want to wake me. My heart was pounding, but I didn't move. The camera caught it all. Anna. She was standing by the edge of my bed, scissors in hand. She moved like a ghost, slicing small bits of my hair right off the top of my head. Not enough to be obvious at first, but enough to mess with me. Then she pulled out some weird little black cloth, shaped like a pouch. She dropped the hair inside and started whispering, not in any language I recognized. It sounded like a low chant. The way she moved, her eyes focused and serious, made my skin crawl. She finished, tied the pouch tight, and then started drawing strange symbols on my sheets with what looked like charcoal. She didn't notice the camera. The whole thing was so surreal, I thought I was dreaming. But no, it was all there. I didn't say anything the next day. I just stared at her like she was some alien creature who had invaded my life. She acted normal, like nothing happened. She made breakfast. She smiled at me over coffee, like she hadn't just been performing some creepy ritual on my hair. After that, I started paying attention to everything. The weird candles in her apartment that smelled like burnt rubber and herbs I didn't recognize. The stacks of old books with weird titles and languages I couldn't read. The jars of strange powders on her shelves. She never talked about her past, never mentioned family or friends, just vague stuff about energy and balance. The hair kept disappearing. Sometimes I'd wake up with my pillow soaked, not from tears, but from some other gross sticky stuff. I never wanted to check too closely. One night, I tried to leave. Packed my bags, got to the door. But Anna was there, standing like she'd been waiting for me. Eyes dark, calm. She didn't say anything. Just reached out and touched my head gently, like she was calming a wild animal. The next morning, I found a new patch missing. This time, it was huge right on the side of my scalp. Raw and red underneath, like she dug in too deep. I freaked out. I told her I needed space. She smiled again, but it was different. Colder. Then she started showing up places I never told her about, like the coffee shop I stopped going to, the bookstore I love. Once, I saw her outside my work building, just standing there watching. I blocked her on everything. She sent me a package the next day. Inside was a tiny box with that black pouch and some hair I swear wasn't mine. And a note. No words, just a crude symbol drawn in red ink. I threw it in the trash, but the smell wouldn't leave my apartment for days, like burnt hair mixed with something sour. I don't know what she was trying to do. Black magic, some twisted control thing. I don't even believe in that stuff, but what else explains waking up with my hair gone, feeling like someone was pulling strings I couldn't see? Eventually, I moved out. Changed my locks, switched phones, deleted all my accounts. Sometimes, when I'm home alone late at night, I still feel it, like something's brushing against the back of my head, like someone's watching, waiting to come back and cut a little more. I don't know what Anna wanted with my hair. I don't want to know. All I know is if you ever see a girl named Anne with scissors in a pouch, just run. Something happened to me a while ago that still feels surreal every time I think about it. Like, how does someone even manage to pull this off without anyone noticing? It's one of those moments that's almost too wild to be true, yet there I was, living it. It all started at this pop-up art gallery tucked away in the middle of nowhere. Well, it felt like nowhere. An old warehouse had been converted into an artsy, almost underground space. Fairy lights flickered overhead, casting a soft glow across the room, and the walls were covered in the kind of wild murals that made you stop and really look. The whole vibe was a mix of gritty and creative, like someone threw a paint bomb in a forgotten industrial space and called it art. Honestly, I wasn't expecting much that night. I was just tagging along with a couple of friends who were into the scene, looking to take some pictures and maybe snag some free drinks. Paul was there for a different reason. His friend was showing some paintings. I spotted him almost immediately. He looked like he was trying too hard to look effortless. You know the type. Clean cut but with a scruffy "I've been out too late" vibe. He wore this old leather jacket that looked like it had survived more nights than most people, the kind that creaked a little when he moved. And then there was his smile, crooked and mischievous, like he was hiding something just behind it. For some reason, I was drawn to him. We started talking near this giant neon sign that read "Live Art," buzzing and flickering as if it had a personality of its own. We hit it off pretty easily. The conversation flowed without awkward pauses, and I found myself laughing more than I had in weeks. Before I knew it, we were exchanging numbers, and suddenly the night felt like the beginning of something. Our first few dates were normal, nothing out of the ordinary. Dinner at a cozy little Italian place, coffee at the corner cafe, walks through the park when the air was crisp but not cold. He was charming, funny, and yes, a bit mysterious, but in that intriguing way that makes you want to know more rather than less. After a couple of weeks, things started moving faster than I expected, but I didn't mind. It felt good. It felt exciting. Then the weird stuff started. It began with small things. I noticed posts on social media tagged with Paul, but featuring girls I'd vaguely recognized, acquaintances from college, friends of friends. At first, I thought maybe they were just old friends or cousins or some harmless connection. But then I started hearing rumors, quiet whispers from people who didn't want to say too much, but hinted that Paul might be seeing multiple people at once. I shrugged it off. Couldn't be true, right? Surely not someone I was actually dating. But then it got worse. One day I ran into Jenna, one of my closest friends, at the coffee shop. She looked off, avoiding eye contact. Her usual spark dimmed. I asked her what was wrong, and after a long hesitation, she finally confessed she needed to talk to me about Paul. That was the moment everything crashed down. Jenna had been seeing Paul too, and not just her. A handful of other girls from my circle, all of us thinking we were the only one. The guy I was dating, the guy who made me feel special, was playing all of us. I couldn't believe it. The way he smiled, the way he made me feel like I was the only one. It was all a lie, like some twisted, manipulative game. We were all completely unaware, living in our own little bubbles, while he was juggling us all without a second thought. I started reaching out to the other girls privately. Some were furious, some heartbroken, some didn't want to believe it at first. But as we shared our stories, the pattern was undeniable. Paul was a master at this charade, bossing one girl only to message another within minutes, tailoring his words perfectly, keeping everyone blinded by his charm and smooth talk. What really messed me up was how close these girls were to me. Friends I trusted, people I had confided in over years, and yet none of us saw it coming. How could we? He was so convincing, so careful. After that, I cut off all contact with Paul. Deleted his number, blocked him everywhere. Instagram, Snapchat, even LinkedIn. I needed space, some kind of distance from the whole toxic energy he brought into my life. It wasn't easy, especially since this wasn't just about Paul. It was about the ripple effect on my friendships. Hanging out with Jenna and the others became awkward, tense. We all knew what happened, but none of us really knew how to move forward. Sometimes when I'm out and about, I see Paul around town, at the local bar or some event. And it's surreal how normal he acts, like none of us ever existed. Like it was all just a bad dream he's already forgotten. I wonder if he ever thinks about what he did, or if he's moved on to the next group without a second thought. It's been months now, and I still think about it. How carefully he managed to pull off something so deceitful without anyone noticing. How smoothly he juggled all these different lives. It's almost impressive in a twisted way, but mostly it just hurts. Dating can be weird. Everyone knows that. But this is something else. A tangled mess of lies and betrayal that left me questioning everything about trust and friendship. And while I'm moving on, part of me still wonders how many other stories like mine are out there, playing out quietly in the background, just waiting to be uncovered. You ever have one of those dates where you think, okay, this is just gonna be some normal thing, no big deal, and then it turns into a total nightmare you can't explain for days? Yeah, that was me with Tallulah. It all started pretty casually. I met her at a friend's party. Nothing fancy, just a chill night with music playing softly in the background and a few drinks flowing. Tallulah stood out immediately, but not in the usual way. She wasn't loud or overly confident like some of the girls I'd met before. She was quieter, almost mysterious, with this sharp, unpredictable edge to her. The kind of girl who smiles but never really lets you know what she's thinking. I don't know, there was something intriguing about that. Like there was some secret hidden beneath the surface, and I wanted to figure it out. Our first date was unpretentious, just a tiny diner tucked away on a side street. No fancy lights or carefully curated ambience, just greasy fries and this old jukebox playing weird 90s music in the corner. Tallulah said she loved places like that, honest, no pretensions, where you could just be yourself without putting on a show. We ordered way too much food, sitting across from each other in a booth with vinyl seats, just talking and laughing about random stuff. It felt easy, like there was no pressure. I remember thinking, maybe this could be something good. But looking back, I wish I had paid more attention to the little things that felt off. The next day, I started feeling weird, like my stomach was cramping more than usual. Not just a little discomfort, but sharp, twisting pains that came and went in waves. I thought maybe it was something I ate. Maybe the diner food didn't agree with me. So I shrugged it off, thinking it'd pass. Then we went on a second date. This time she said she wanted to cook for me. She called it her favorite recipe, something she'd been dying to share. We went to her place, and she made this pasta dish with a creamy sauce that smelled kind of like thyme, but not quite right. Something unfamiliar, but vaguely herbaceous. I ate it, trying not to show how I felt, but soon after, my stomach started twisting again. I kept quiet. Didn't want to ruin the mood or seem ungrateful. I figured maybe I was just sensitive to something I didn't know about. The day after that, the cramps got worse. Not just uncomfortable, painful. I was dizzy, exhausted, and honestly starting to freak out a little because I couldn't figure out what was going on. I started paying close attention to what I ate on our dates. Every time, something about the food felt off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. By the third date, suspicion was creeping in. I told myself it had to be coincidence, but deep down I couldn't shake it. This time we went to a new restaurant. Fancy, dim lights, live music in the background. The kind of place where you usually don't think twice about what you're eating because it all looks so polished. She ordered a salad and grilled chicken. I went with a steak. Everything seemed normal, but halfway through my meal, the familiar cramps hit again, so I excused myself to the bathroom. While I was in there, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I ignored it, but my curiosity got the better of me. Later that night, I started searching online, typing in symptoms, trying to see if anyone else had ever experienced sudden, intense stomach pain after eating with someone. I stumbled across forums and stories where people talked about being drugged with laxatives without knowing it, like a cruel prank or a way to mess with someone. It sounded insane, but somehow it made sense. The pieces started clicking. I decided to confront Delilah. I kept it casual. I asked if she was on any medications or taking anything that might upset my stomach. She smiled, said nothing was wrong with her or the food she cooked, but something in her eyes made me freeze, like she was hiding something or maybe enjoying the game a little too much. Then came the biggest twist. I was hanging out with a mutual friend who casually mentioned that Delilah had recently bought some herbal supplements online. They were supposed to be natural digestive aids, but when I looked up the brand, it turned out they were basically laxatives in disguise. I remembered the strange sauce on the pasta, the weird herbs she used, and how my symptoms flared up every time I ate with her. One night, after another painful episode, I confronted her more directly. Not with accusations or anger, just plain honesty. I told her I knew she was putting laxatives in my food. She didn't deny it. Instead, she laughed quietly like I was some kind of joke. She said something about teaching me a lesson or seeing if I could handle it. I don't remember her exact words. All I remember was the sinking feeling of betrayal and disgust. After that, I cut all contact. Blocked her on everything. Phone, social media, you name it. But the whole thing stayed with me, far beyond the physical pain or the embarrassment of being tricked. What really got me was how casually she treated it, like it was some kind of game or experiment, like my suffering was just a punchline. Months later, I still have weird trust issues. Food doesn't feel quite the same anymore, especially when someone offers to cook for me. Every time I feel a stomach cramp, my mind drifts back to those dates with Delilah. It's like a bad memory that won't fade, a reminder that sometimes people are capable of really messed up stuff under the surface. Dating's supposed to be fun, or at least normal, right? But some people take it to a whole different messed up level. If you ever get that gut feeling that something's off, trust it. Don't end up like me, second guessing every bite and wondering what's really going on behind that perfect smile. I met this guy Sean online. Yeah, one of those dating apps that feels like a complete lottery sometimes. We clicked pretty quickly, like I was honestly excited to meet someone who wasn't a total weirdo. After a few days of texting, he suggested we meet up in person. Nothing fancy, just coffee at this little cafe in this quiet part of town. Not the usual noisy bar or some flashy place, which was kind of a relief. I was pumped, but also low-key nervous. The day of the date came, and I was already picturing how it'd go. Chill, maybe we'd laugh, talk about dumb stuff. Maybe get to know each other without all that impress each other pressure. I got there early, found a corner spot, and waited. Sean showed up on time, looked exactly like his pictures, and was pretty laid back. The first hour was all good vibes. Funny stories, some awkward laughs, that comfortable kind of buzz you get when things are just clicking. But then, right when I was thinking this could actually work, she showed up. This girl, like out of nowhere. She sat at the table next to us, but I swear she was staring like a hawk. Sean noticed too, obviously, but tried to play it cool. I felt the tension shoot through me like an electric jolt. I didn't even know her name at the time, but she introduced herself as just someone Sean knew. Funny how just someone somehow managed to drag herself into our date like she owned the place. The way she kept cutting into our conversation, not directly but with those pointed comments and that fake sweet tone. It was so obvious she was trying to get a rise out of me. The whole vibe went from chill to awkward real fast. It was weird because Sean kept looking at her like he didn't know what to do. I could tell he wanted me to handle it, but I was new to this. I didn't want to cause a scene, but she was relentless. After the date, which felt like it lasted forever, she even messaged me pretending to be all friendly, but I swear it was more like an underhanded warning. That's when the real nightmare began. At first, it was small stuff. Little texts from Sean acting weird, messages disappearing, or conversations getting twisted. Then I started noticing how Sean's mood would flip after spending time on his phone. When I asked, he shrugged it off, saying it was work stress or something, but I wasn't buying it. One night, I caught a glimpse of some notifications on his phone when he wasn't looking. They were from this girl, the ex, and they weren't normal. She was texting him like she was still involved in his life, but the messages were all gaslighting stuff. Things like, "Are you sure she'd right for you? And remember how you used to feel with me? She can't compare." I tried to bring it up with Sean, but he got defensive and vague. That's when I realized she wasn't just some random girl trying to stir drama. She was actively trying to mess with us, and not in a casual way, like she had some kind of surveillance on his online stuff. A few days later, things got insane. I found out she had been monitoring his social media, his messages, even his location. She'd leave comments on his posts pretending to be a concerned friend, but really she was just planting seeds of doubt. And somehow she was twisting everything Sean and I shared into arguments. I felt like I was losing my grip on what was real and what wasn't. At one point, Sean started doubting me too. He accused me of hiding things or being too suspicious. The whole thing felt like I was living inside a bad movie where the villain was always one step ahead, messing with my head and trying to split us up. And the worst part, Sean was caught in the middle, unable to see what was actually happening. It got so bad that I didn't want to hang out anymore. Every time I looked at my phone, I expected a text from her, some drama waiting to explode. I stopped inviting Sean out with friends because I was scared she'd show up by accident again. Every notification was a potential new mess. I was stressed out 24/7. One night, I even started checking if she was following Sean on all these random accounts. She was there, lurking in every corner like some digital ghost that wouldn't leave us alone. I confronted Sean again, telling him I knew she was watching and messing with us. For a moment, I thought maybe we could figure it out together. But Sean just shook his head and said maybe I should just deal with it on my own. That was when I realized this wasn't just a simple ex-girlfriend drama. It was a full-on obsession on her side. Sean wasn't ready or able to fight back, and I was getting dragged deeper into this mess without a clue how to stop it. The last straw was when she showed up at Sean's work. Not a hello, I need to talk kind of visit, more like an intentional power move. I wasn't there, but he told me how uncomfortable it was. She acted like she had the right to be there, like she was staking her claim again. Sean didn't know what to do, and honestly, neither did I. I cut things off after that. It wasn't the right kind of complicated. I didn't want to be stuck in a story where the past keeps bleeding into the present, turning everything upside down. Sean probably still deals with her drama when I'm out. It wasn't worth the headache and the constant questioning of what was real. Looking back, it's wild how one person can throw such a huge shadow over something new and good. It started with what felt like a normal date and ended up as this twisted, non-stop game of mental chess that I never signed up for. So yeah, that's my story about Sean and his ex who just couldn't stay gone. Sometimes people don't leave the past behind. They bring it right into your face and expect you to deal with the mess. And honestly, I'm still glad I got out before it got any worse. It all started pretty chill. I met Freya at this coffee shop downtown. Nothing fancy, just a quick chat over a cappuccino. She was easy to talk to, funny in a low-key way, and I thought maybe this could go somewhere. After a few weeks of texting and hanging out, we started seeing each other exclusively. Nothing official, no big deal yet, but it felt different than my usual casual stuff. She invited me over to her place for the first time after about a month of dating, and I was pretty excited, not gonna lie. Her apartment was on the top floor of this old building with creaky wooden floors and a weird smell of dust and cinnamon. The kind of place that felt a little off, but in a cozy way. When she opened the door, everything looked normal at first glance, except I noticed a bunch of shoes lined up by the door. Not unusual, except there were way too many for just one person, and some of them looked kind of worn out, like they didn't belong to her. I thought maybe she had roommates or something, but she never mentioned it. We went inside, and I tried to ignore that little nagging feeling in the back of my mind. The apartment was small but organized, except for this one bedroom that was locked. She said it was just a storage room, nothing important. I believed her mostly because I didn't want to be that guy who was suspicious on the first visit. So we hung out, watched some Netflix, and it all felt fine. A few days later, I was at her place again. This time she wasn't there when I got there, but the door was unlocked, so I went in to wait. That's when I noticed the weird stuff. First, in the kitchen, there were food packages that definitely weren't hers. I'm talking about different brands, stuff she never bought when I'd seen her grocery receipts. Some of the food was expired, like it had been sitting there for a while. I figured maybe a friend had left it or something, but it felt weird. Then I saw some clothes in the laundry basket, not hers and definitely not mine. Women's clothes, but totally different style than Freya's. I got this weird pit in my stomach. The worst was when I went to the living room to grab a book she mentioned, and I noticed a folded blanket under the couch. It looked like someone had been sleeping there, not just napping, but like actually living there. I started poking around a little more and found a small backpack tucked behind the armchair. It had some personal stuff in it, a wallet with ID, a phone charger, random toiletries. This wasn't just some random visitor. Someone was staying there without me knowing. I tried to act normal when Freya came back, but I couldn't stop my mind from racing. That night, I kept thinking about what I found. Why wouldn't she just tell me if she was living with someone? The next day, I asked about the locked room, and she finally said, kind of casually, that it was just a guest room she hadn't used in months. But that didn't explain the stuff I'd seen around the apartment. Over the next week, I kept noticing more signs that someone else was there. I heard noises when I thought she was alone, faint footsteps or doors closing softly in the middle of the night. Sometimes the lights would flicker, or I'd catch a glimpse of movement out of the corner of my eye when I thought no one else was home. I didn't say anything at first because I wasn't sure if I was imagining things, but it was creeping me out. I started paying attention to her phone when she wasn't looking, just to see if I could find out anything. One night, I accidentally saw a message pop up from someone named Alex, someone she was clearly trying to keep secret. The messages were kind of vague but sounded intense, like Alex was either living there or at least very involved in her life. I felt like I was in some weird spy movie. Then, one afternoon, when Fry left to run errands, I couldn't resist. I went back to that locked room. After a quick search online, I managed to jimmy the lock open with a hairpin I found in the kitchen. Inside was a small, cramped bedroom with a bed, clothes, and a bunch of personal stuff, like someone was living there full time. The whole place felt off like it was frozen in time and barely used, but definitely occupied. There were pictures on the wall, but they weren't of Freya. They were of this other person, a guy with intense eyes and a smile that looked a little off. I freaked out. This wasn't just a secret roommate. It felt more like a hidden life. I kept digging through the stuff and found notes, some with dates and names, but also some weird sketches. The whole room gave me the creeps, like this person wasn't just a secret partner or friend, maybe someone dangerous or unstable. I didn't know what to do, so I locked the door back and waited for Freya to come home. When she got back, I confronted her about the room and this stuff. She didn't deny it. She said she'd been hiding Alex, a guy she was still involved with in some way, someone she didn't want me to meet. I told her this wasn't cool, but she just shrugged it off like it was no big deal. That's when I realized I was way more involved in her complicated life than I ever wanted to be. After that, every visit felt like walking into a trap. The hidden partner, the locked room, the secret life. It all piled up and made me question what else she was hiding. Freya kept acting like nothing was wrong, but I knew better. I ended it soon after because, honestly, I didn't want to be the other guy living in the shadows. Looking back, I think the worst part was how normal everything seemed on the surface, and how easy it was to get sucked into something totally messed up without seeing it coming. It wasn't some horror movie with obvious scares. It was real life, with hidden rooms and secret people living behind closed doors. What started as a simple date turned into this bizarre, twisted mess of secrets and shadows. I'm just glad I got out before it got any worse. It started pretty casual. I met Claire at this small art show in the city, one of those spots where people sip cheap wine and pretend they know what they're looking at. She was cool, funny, the kind of girl who seemed real without trying too hard. We exchanged numbers, started texting, and before I knew it, we were hanging out a lot. I wasn't looking for anything serious, but with Claire, it felt easy, like she got me in a way most people didn't. After a few weeks of going out, it was like things just sped up. Claire started asking me to share stuff. Photos, Personal things, stuff I'd usually keep to myself. It didn't come out of nowhere, more like little nudges at first. She said it was just between us, like it was some kind of secret handshake, and I kind of went with it because I trusted her. I thought maybe this was just how people got closer these days, sharing the stuff you don't show the world. At first, it was mostly harmless stuff. Photos of me messing around, candid shots, random texts. I didn't think much of it. But then she started pushing harder, asking for stuff that felt way too private, like things I wouldn't send to anyone. I told her I wasn't comfortable, that some things were off limits, but she didn't back off. Instead, she switched gears and got kinda intense, like she was pissed I wasn't giving her what she wanted. That's when things started to feel really wrong. She started hinting that she knew things about me that I didn't want anyone else to find out. Stuff from my past, embarrassing stuff I thought was buried. I got messages that felt like warnings, like I didn't play along, like she'd share those things online or use my social media against me. It was like suddenly this girl I liked was holding all this power over me. I was trapped between wanting to trust her and wanting to protect myself. I tried to talk myself into thinking she wouldn't actually do it, that maybe it was just talk to scare me into cooperating. But the way she talked, the way she acted, it felt like she was serious. I didn't know what she had on me, but the idea of her controlling my life through my own secrets was terrifying. I started watching my posts online, deleting old stuff, locking down my accounts. But Claire always found ways to push, always had some new way to remind me that she had the upper hand. One night, I got a message from her that really freaked me out. It wasn't even a threat this time, more like a cold reminder that she could ruin me if she wanted. She said something about knowing who really sees the real me, and that if I didn't share what she wanted, everyone else would. I felt like I was caught in this weird power game, and there was no way out. The pressure got so intense that I started avoiding her calls and texts, hoping the whole thing would blow over. But it didn't. Instead, she started posting stuff on her social media that felt like little digs, cryptic posts, vague stories, things that made me paranoid. I couldn't tell if she was trying to send me a message or just messing with my head. Every time I checked my home accounts, I worried about what she might post next. At some point, I realized this wasn't about love or getting closer. It was about control. Claire wasn't interested in me as a person. She wanted me to be hers to manipulate. And when I refused to play that game, she switched from pretending to care to trying to scare me. I felt like I was living with a constant shadow hanging over me, wondering if the next message or post would ruin everything. I told a couple of close friends about what was going on, but even they didn't really get it. It's one of those things that sounds like drama until it happens to you. You feel stuck between wanting to stand up for yourself and being scared of the fallout. I even thought about going to the cops, but what would I say? That some girl I was dating was threatening to leak stuff unless I sent her photos. It felt embarrassing and hopeless. The worst part was the slow erosion of trust. Every time I looked at my phone, I wondered if Claire had sent a message or if she had found some new way to corner me. I stopped being myself online, stopped posting or sharing anything personal. It was like living in this constant half-light, always on guard, never fully relaxed. Eventually, I cut ties with her. It wasn't easy. I was scared of what she might do next, but I had to get out. After I stopped replying, the messages didn't stop immediately. There were still some nasty posts and weird hints online, but over time it faded. Maybe she moved on, or maybe she realized I wasn't worth the effort anymore. Looking back, it's wild how someone who starts out seeming so normal can turn into this controlling force. Claire made me question what trust even means and how quickly it can be twisted into something dark. The whole thing felt like this nightmare where the lines between love and fear get so blurry, you don't know where one ends and the other begins. I met Dustin through a friend's party, the kind of low-key thing where you don't expect much but end up actually talking to someone who seems legit. From the moment we started talking, he seemed like the kind of guy everyone's looking for. Funny, easy to be around, but also kind of mysterious in a way that didn't feel forced. We exchanged numbers that night, and texting with him felt natural. Not the usual annoying back and forth, but something chill. He told me he worked as a freelance photographer, which sounded cool and different from most of the guys I'd met before. I didn't think much about it. I liked that he wasn't stuck in some boring 9 to 5. After a couple of weeks of hanging out, everything was smooth. We went out to these quirky cafes, walked around the city at night, and talked about all kinds of stuff. He was charming, but never pushed me for anything. The more I got to know him, the more I liked him. I'd even started introducing him to my close friends. Dustin fit in without trying too hard, which made me feel like maybe this could actually go somewhere. But then little things started popping up that didn't add up. Like one time I asked him about a photo he'd shared of a building he said he'd shot for a client. I checked online later and couldn't find any record of the company he mentioned. It was a small detail that stuck with me. I figured maybe he was just being private about work, so I didn't press it. Then there was this weird thing with his phone. We were hanging out, and he left it unattended for a moment. When I glanced at the screen, there were a bunch of messages from someone calling him by a completely different name. I froze and looked closer, but he caught me before I could ask anything. He just said it was an old nickname and laughed it off, but something felt off. I started digging, not because I was trying to be paranoid, but because I felt like I needed to know who this guy really was. When I searched for Dustin's name and the freelance photography job he claimed, there was nothing. No website, no portfolio, no social media presence related to his work. It was like he was invisible online except for a few casual personal posts. One night, after he left his laptop unattended, I couldn't help myself and checked his browser history. I'm not proud of it, but curiosity took over. There were searches and open tabs for stuff that made my stomach drop. Background checks, fake identity tips, even some court records for someone with a name that wasn't Dustin. The guy had apparently been looking up how to cover his tracks. The more I found, the clearer it became that Dustin wasn't who he said he was. His name was fake, his job was fake, and all these stories about his life were just a cover. He was hiding something big, something serious. I even found out that the real person he was pretending to be was linked to some shady business and possibly legal trouble. It hit me like a punch in the gut. I wasn't just dating a liar. I was dating someone running from a past that could ruin him if it ever caught up. It was like the whole Dustin persona was a mask to keep his real life hidden. The question was, why involve me? Was that just a way to distract himself? Or worse, was I in danger just by knowing? When I confronted him about it, which was terrifying on its own, he didn't deny anything. Instead, he seemed relieved that I knew. He told me about the mess he was trying to escape from, mistakes he made, people he was running from. It wasn't some harmless secret. It was a full-on ghost life he built from scratch. After that, everything changed. I was constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering if the past he ran from would find me too. The easy conversations turned into guarded ones, and the last felt forced. I stopped trusting the person I thought I knew. One night, I saw someone waiting outside my place. I couldn't tell if they were there for Dustin or if it had something to do with me. After that, I stopped answering his calls and texts. The whole situation was too much. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when I felt like I was living next to a ticking time bomb. It's crazy how quickly someone who feels perfect can become so terrifying. Dustin wasn't just a fake name on an app or a guy with a made-up job. He was a person running from a past that didn't want to let go, and somehow I got caught in the middle. I've moved on, but I still think about how real that danger felt, like I was part of a story I never signed up for. Some people don't just hide their past. They erase themselves and build a whole new life to survive. And sometimes that new life pulls you in without warning. Perfect stranger who turned out to be a complete mystery with a dark history I wasn't ready for. Sometimes the people you fall for aren't who they want you to believe, and finding out the truth is the scariest part. It all began pretty normal. I met Rita at this little coffee shop I sometimes went to after work. She was sitting alone with a book, and I somehow ended up talking to her about the dumbest things, like how the barista never gets my order right in the best shows on Netflix. She was easy to talk to, and for once, I felt like someone was actually listening instead of just waiting for their turn to speak. A couple of weeks later, we started hanging out more regularly. Rita had this energy where she wanted to fix stuff, not just big stuff, but little details in my life I hadn't even thought about. She noticed how messy my apartment was, how I never really called my family, how my email inbox was a disaster. At first, I thought it was sweet, like finally someone cared enough to point out the stuff I should be doing but wasn't. Then the help got more intense. She started wanting access to my phone, saying it was because she wanted to organize my contacts or help me deal with annoying messages. I didn't think much of it at first. She seemed harmless enough, and it felt kind of nice to have someone looking out for me. But soon it wasn't just my phone. She was reading my emails, which felt off, but she made it seem like I was lucky to have her. I kept thinking maybe I was just overreacting. The thing is, Rita didn't stop there. She began reaching out to my friends, texting them about things I supposedly forgot or didn't handle right. She'd ask questions that made them sound confused about me, like maybe I was unreliable or distant. I didn't get why she was doing it, but I just shrugged it off, thinking maybe she was trying to be friendly or help me reconnect. But the weird part was how people started pulling away. Friends I had known forever suddenly seemed busy or stopped replying altogether. When I tried to reach out, they sounded awkward or like they were hiding something. It was like Rita was building walls around me, one little action at a time, and I didn't even see it happening. At home, she began helping with my schedule, suggesting I cut back on certain plans or cancel meetings because she thought they were bad for me. The thing was, she always framed it as concern, like she was protecting me from people or situations that weren't good. But slowly, it became less about protection and more about control. I started feeling like I had to check with her before I did anything social or even work-related. I remember one night I stayed out late with a friend, and when I came back, Rita was waiting at my door. She acted like nothing was wrong, but I could tell she'd been worried. After that, she started showing up more unannounced, saying it was because she cared if I was okay. But honestly, it just felt like she was watching me, and it was suffocating. She'd go through my things when I wasn't around. Once I caught her scrolling through my phone while I was in the bathroom, and she didn't even try to hide it. When I asked about it, she said it was because she was looking out for me, like I was too distracted to manage my own life. It made me feel like I was losing control over my own space, my own privacy. Her contact with my friends got more intense too. She'd send messages that sounded like they were for me or about me, making sure people stayed in the loop, but in a way that made me look bad or unreliable. When I confronted her about it, she brushed it off, saying she just wanted to keep my social life organized, but I knew it was more than that. At work, things got worse. She insisted on knowing my schedule, who I was meeting, even the content of my emails. She said it was because she cared if I was stressed or overwhelmed, but it felt like she was cutting off any space I had outside of her. I started missing deadlines or showing up late because she was always demanding my attention, and my boss noticed. I hated that I was slipping, but I didn't know how to get out. What really hit me was when I found out she'd been contacting my family behind my back. My sister told me Rita had called, asking weird questions about my past, my health, and if I was really happy. I felt blindsided, like my personal life was being invaded in ways I never imagined. It wasn't just about me anymore. She was trying to control how everyone around me saw me. I tried to pull away, but every time I distanced myself, Rita would ramp up the concern. She'd say things like she was worried I was shutting her out or that she just wanted to be there for me. It felt impossible to argue with that kind of guilt tripping. It was like being trapped in a cage where the bars were made of kindness that slowly turned into manipulation. Eventually, I stopped telling her where I was going or who I was seeing. I deleted messages, changed passwords, tried to rebuild the walls she knocked down. But she always found a way back in, texting friends, calling my phone, showing up when I didn't expect it. It was like she had eyes everywhere, and no part of my life was really mine anymore. Looking back, I can't believe how quickly things went from someone just helping me to this constant feeling of being watched and controlled. It wasn't just about caring, it was about owning me piece by piece. And the worst part is how easy it was for her to convince me that this was normal, that I should be grateful for someone who cared so much. In the end, I had to get out. It took a lot to break free, and even now, I'm still dealing with how much of my life felt hijacked. Rita's not someone who just disappears. She's the kind of person who warms into your world using kindness as a trap. That's my story with Rita. What started as concern turned into control, and it was a slow, unsettling crawl to realize I was the one losing myself. It's weird how someone can seem like they're helping, but really they're just locking the door behind you. The night felt pretty normal at first. We met around 8 at this low bar downtown. Nothing fancy, just the kind of place with dim lighting and a jukebox playing old rock songs. Everything was casual. We were laughing about dumb stuff, swapping stories about terrible jobs and awkward family moments. I felt comfortable with Z, which doesn't happen often when I'm with new people. He was smooth, but not in a pushy, over-the-top way. Just easygoing, the kind of guy who makes you feel like you've known him for ages. We ordered drinks, and I wasn't suspicious. I didn't know him well, so I just trusted whatever he suggested. Z recommended a cocktail he called his favorite, something fruity and sweet. I went along with it because, well, why not? The night was rolling, and I was genuinely enjoying the conversation. But as the night went on, I started feeling weird. At first, it was subtle, a little dizzy, a bit foggy in my head. I figured maybe it was the drinks catching up with me or just being out late on a weeknight. But soon enough, the dizziness intensified, and I felt completely off balance. My vision blurred, sounds around me got distorted, and it was like the world was spinning in slow motion. I tried to focus on Z, but his face kept melting in and out of clarity like a bad glitch on a screen. My legs felt like jelly beneath me. I told him I wasn't feeling great, hoping he'd understand. He said he'd get me some water. I nodded, trying to keep my composure. When he came back, I barely had the strength to lift the glass to my lips. Even swallowing felt like a huge effort. From that point on, everything became a broken loop in my mind, disjointed and confusing. I remember waking up somewhere unfamiliar, my phone screen lighting up with strange messages I couldn't quite make sense of. I had a pounding headache that lingered for days. But the worst was the memory. My recollection was shattered, like a jigsaw puzzle missing half its pieces. I couldn't put together what happened after I started feeling bad. It was terrifying the way I was trapped in my own body, completely vulnerable. For a long time, I didn't tell anyone. I was embarrassed, confused, and unsure what exactly had gone wrong. I kept telling myself maybe I had just passed out from drinking too much. But deep down, something told me otherwise. That gnawing feeling of being out of control stayed with me like a shadow I couldn't shake. After a few days of trying to piece that night together, I decided to look Z up online. I was hoping to find something, anything, that would explain what happened. What I found instead made my stomach drop. There were news articles and forum posts about a guy matching his description. Someone who had been arrested multiple times for drugging drinks at bars and then taking advantage of people who were incapacitated. The same name, the same smooth charm that hid something dangerous underneath. I couldn't believe it. The guy I trusted, laughed with, and felt comfortable around was the same person preying on people, probably doing the exact same thing to others over and over again. I reached out to a few friends who had been with me earlier that night, hoping they might have noticed something I missed. They told me they'd seen Z slip something into my drink. They weren't sure what it was or how to say anything in the moment, but looking back, they remembered that split second when Z acted a little too smooth, a little too practiced. The realization made my stomach churn. I had always been careful, or at least I thought I was. But he'd been one step ahead the entire time, hiding his intentions behind a smile and easy conversation. Trying to recover from that experience was brutal. Every time I closed my eyes, I was transported back to that night, helpless, confused, and scared. Even now, months later, I get anxious when I go out or order a drink. I watch every move carefully, my eyes glued to the bartender or the person handing me a drink like a hawk. Trust feels like this fragile thing that shattered in an instant. What scares me most is realizing how well Z played the part. He was charming enough to get close, normal enough to make you feel safe, and cruel enough to exploit that trust when no one was looking. It's terrifying to think about how many others he might have hurt without them ever knowing who they were dealing with. I'm sharing this because I want people to know it can happen to anyone. The night with Z started off just like any other date. Fun, lighthearted, full of potential, and then it turned dark and confusing before I even realized what was happening. The worst part wasn't just the drugs or losing control of my own body. It was understanding how someone could pretend to be trustworthy and kind while hiding a dangerous side no one ever sees coming. It's strange how fast someone can switch from the person you're excited about to someone you're scared of. Z wasn't just a bad date. He was someone who planned to trap people in moments when they couldn't fight back. And it takes days, sometimes weeks, to put the pieces together. By then, the damage is done. So yeah, that's how my night with Z went from fun to frightening without me realizing it until it was too late. If there's one thing I've learned, it's to never let your guard down, no matter how safe someone seems. But honestly, even that doesn't always feel like enough. Because the truth is, sometimes predators don't wear scary masks. Sometimes they just wear a smile. Lucy I met through friends, grabbed a few drinks, and hit it off. Nothing crazy, just the kind of date that feels easy and chill. She was into the same weird movies as me, loved dogs, and had this dry sense of humor I couldn't resist. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just some company and laughs, but I liked her. Things felt straightforward. Then, after a couple of weeks, little things began to feel strange, like she would ask questions that felt super specific, as if she already knew the answer. Stuff about my family, my old jobs, even details from way back that I barely remember telling anyone. At first, I thought she just paid attention or was genuinely interested, but it didn't add up. How did she know about my college roommate's weird tattoo or the name of that bar I used to work at for a summer? That wasn't stuff I shared with many people. One night, she slipped something under the door of my apartment, a folded piece of paper with a phone number and a note that just said, "Call this." I didn't want to freak out or jump to conclusions, so I didn't call. But it didn't stop there. Over the next few days, Lucy's behavior got more intense. She'd show up unannounced, saying she was in the neighborhood or had something to discuss. She casually dropped comments about things only someone watching me closely would know, like a business trip I didn't even mention to her yet or a conversation I had with a coworker. I started digging on my own, trying to find out what the hell was going on. That's when I discovered that private investigators weren't just a thing in movies or rich people drama. They were real, and some people actually hired them to check out potential partners. The thought that Lucy might have done that hit me like a punch. Could she have hired someone to follow me around? To get all my info, snoop on my past, maybe even see what I do when I'm not with her. It felt creepy, but also somehow sickly smart in a way. She wanted to know everything before fully trusting me. But it went beyond that. I started noticing small things. Glances from people I didn't recognize at the coffee shop. Cars that seemed to slow down whenever I walked by. Strange calls on my phone from blocked numbers. I wasn't paranoid. Something was definitely off. Then one afternoon, I got a call from a guy introducing himself as a private investigator, saying Lucy had hired him to make sure I was who I said I was. I didn't know whether to laugh or freak out. He said he had been following me for weeks, pulling records, talking to my friends, and even checking my social media history. The crazy part was, I had no idea about any of this. Lucy never said a word. The investigator mentioned things I never expected anyone to know about me, stuff I barely shared with anyone. It wasn't just a casual background check. This felt like a full-on deep dive. The idea that my life had been put under a microscope, all because someone wanted to protect themselves, made my stomach twist. I confronted Lucy, but she just said she wanted to be careful and that I should understand. That she had every right to know who she was dealing with. At that point, I wasn't sure if I was in a relationship or under investigation. It felt like dating had turned into a weird audition where my every move was watched and judged. Even worse was how her trust never really felt earned. It was forced by this constant surveillance. I started feeling like I couldn't breathe around her. Privacy didn't exist anymore. I couldn't have a simple night out without wondering if someone was tailing me or if she was checking my phone when I wasn't looking. The paranoia crept in naturally because the situation was built on it. Friends started noticing too. They'd mentioned that Lucy was texting them, asking questions about me, trying to get their side of the story. People I thought were just our mutual friends suddenly felt like part of her investigation team. It was exhausting. One day, I followed one of the leads the investigator gave me and found out she dug into my past relationships, tracked down old acquaintances, and even looked into things that didn't really have anything to do with me. It was like she wanted to control every little part of my life, not just know about it. Eventually, I realized that Lucy wasn't just cautious, she was obsessed with control. The private investigator was just a tool she used to peel back the layers of my life until there was nothing left hidden. The relationship wasn't about trust or connection. It was about power and fear, and I was stuck right in the middle. I stopped answering her calls, blocked her on everything, and tried to cut her out completely. But even after all that, the feeling that someone had invaded my privacy so deeply didn't go away. It's hard to shake the idea that your life was an open book for someone who didn't care about boundaries. Looking back, I can't believe how easily things spiraled from casual dates to a full-blown personal investigation. It's like dating wasn't just about getting to know each other anymore, but surviving the slow, creeping invasion of privacy. Lucy's move wasn't just about wanting to protect herself. It was about making sure she had all the power by knowing everything, even the things I never wanted her to find. A date that turned into an investigation, and a relationship built on the idea that trust isn't given, it's forced. If you ever feel like someone's digging too deep into your life without telling you, listen to that feeling. Because once the walls go up, it's damn near impossible to bring them down. This all started because I thought I found someone who actually got me. His name was Walter, and we matched on this dating app I barely even used. I wasn't expecting much, just some casual swiping to pass the time. But when Walter popped up, it was different. His pictures looked like he stepped right out of some indie movie, kind eyes, casual style, and this kind of smile that made you think he wasn't just another basic profile. There was something genuine about him. The kind of guy you imagine sitting across a dimly lit coffee shop, talking for hours. We started chatting, and honestly, it was kinda amazing. Unlike most conversations on dating apps, ours felt real. He wasn't full of empty compliments or cheesy pickup lines. Instead, we traded jokes, shared weird stories, and talked about stuff that actually mattered. I found myself looking forward to his messages, which was rare for me. Usually, these things fizzle out fast or feel like a chore. But with Walter, it was easy. But here's the thing about online dating. The perfect vibe can start cracking the second you get too close. And with Walter, that's exactly what happened. At first, a little odd things seemed harmless, maybe just quirks or misunderstandings. His stories about his job kept shifting. One day, he said he worked in marketing. The next, it was something about freelance design. I thought maybe he was juggling multiple gigs or just didn't want to overshare. I tried not to read too much into it. Then there was the schedule. Walter was always busy whenever I suggested a video call or meeting up in person. Sometimes it was family stuff, other times work deadlines. The excuses felt plausible, but when it happened over and over, it started to feel like I was chasing shadows. His texts came at weird times, like he was sneaking in messages when no one was watching. Still, I wanted to believe in him, that gnawing feeling, that little voice telling me something was off. I tried to ignore it. I kept telling myself, maybe he really is busy. Or maybe I'm just being paranoid. But one day, I decided to dig a little deeper. I took his profile pictures and ran them through a reversed image search. And that's when the first huge red flag showed up. The photos weren't original. They belonged to some model, posted on random websites, stock images or portfolio shots. Definitely not personal photos. The guy I've been talking to. Probably not the guy in those pictures. I froze. It was like the ground shifted beneath me. I wanted to confront him, but how do you call out someone you've never met? I tried pushing again for a video call, but the excuses came back full force. My camera's broken. I'm traveling to a remote place with no signal. The story changed every time. That's when I started digging even more, looking for any clue about who this person really was. I found forums and groups where people shared stories about scammers using stolen photos to build fake profiles. They trick people into trusting them, then manipulate them emotionally, sometimes asking for money or personal information. Suddenly, all those weird little details made sense. The dodging, the vague answers, the pressure not to share too much but still feel close. I felt like I'd been walking through a fog and finally stumbled onto the truth. Then, out of nowhere, I got a message from another user on the app. This person said they had been scammed by someone using the same pictures as Walter, trying to get money for some fake emergency, a family crisis, something to tug at the heartstrings. It hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just some harmless catfish. It was a scammer, someone who preyed on people's trust to make a quick buck. What messed me up even more was how convincing it all was. Walter used those photos like a mask, making him seem so real and tangible. The voice messages I thought were genuine, probably recorded by someone else, were stolen from the internet. The emotional manipulation was slow and subtle, making me feel like I was the only one he was opening up to, the one who mattered. It's twisted how that kind of fake closeness can make you let your guard down. I spent days trying to figure out what to do next. I blocked him everywhere and reported the profile. I couldn't shake this weird, heavy feeling of violation. It wasn't just about the time wasted or the lies. It was about trust itself. Someone had taken pieces of my trust and twisted them into something ugly, something designed to hurt. I told a few close friends what happened, and while they were shocked, they weren't surprised. These scams are everywhere now. It's scary how easily someone can build a fake life online that sucks people in and then breaks them. Even though I never met Walter in person, he managed to mess with my head in a way that feels personal. It's a weird kind of horror, realizing that the person you thought you could connect with was nothing but a ghost, built from stolen images and fake stories. Some days I still wonder who's behind that screen. What kind of person spends time weeding these webs? What did he get out of it besides hurting people? It's exhausting to think about, but also a reminder to stay cautious, even when something feels too good to be true. So yeah, that's my story. I matched with Walter, thought I found someone real, and ended up caught in a confusing nightmare. It's wild how something that starts as a simple swipe can spiral into months of doubt, fear, and heartache without you even seeing it coming. If there's one thing I want people to take away from this, be careful out there. The person behind the screen might not be who they say they are. And sometimes the biggest danger isn't a stranger lurking in the shadows. It's the lies hiding behind a perfect smile. Never thought a simple dinner at someone's place could turn into one of the worst nights of my life. When Claudia invited me over, it seemed like the perfect next step, cozy, low-key, and way more personal than just grabbing drinks at a bar. She had this vibe that was warm but a little mysterious, the kind of girl who seemed to live in a small apartment full of plants and candles. It felt like an escape from the usual dating chaos. I was excited, maybe even a little nervous, but mostly curious. Her place was exactly like you'd expect. Soft lighting, music that wasn't too loud, the smell of something cooking in the kitchen. She said she'd made dinner herself, and I wasn't about to say no. It was the kind of date that promised more than just a few hours. It promised a glimpse into someone's world. So I showed up, hoping for good food and maybe a connection. At first, everything seemed normal. The food was good, maybe a little heavy, but nothing weird. We talked, laughed a bit, and I'd noticed how she paid attention to small details, like the way I liked my drinks, or how I reacted to certain stories. It felt like she was trying to make me comfortable. But about an hour after eating, things started going south fast. My stomach fell off right away, like something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I tried to ignore it at first, thinking maybe I just ate too fast or something didn't sit right. But then the dizziness hit. I had to sit down, and it felt like the room was spinning even though my eyes were wide open. Everything got blurry, and the noise around me started fading like I was underwater. I thought maybe I was just super tired, but it got worse. My heart was pounding, and I could barely catch my breath. Claudia's face was the last thing I remembered before I blacked out for a bit. When I came to, she was hovering over me, acting all concerned. But something about it didn't sit right. It felt too calm, too rehearsed, like she was playing a role instead of really caring. I didn't know what was happening to me, but I knew I had to get out. I stumbled out of her place, barely making it to the street before I had to lean against a wall and catch my breath. The nausea was overwhelming and my head was pounding like a drum. I called a friend to pick me up because I honestly didn't think I could make it home on my own. Once I was safe, I started thinking about what had happened. It wasn't just food poisoning or something accidental. Something felt wrong, too wrong to ignore. In the days after, I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was just a bad reaction, I told myself. But then a weird little detail kept nagging at me. Claudia's food had tasted different, like there was something off beneath the surface. I started remembering little things. How she kept insisting on what I should eat and drink. How she watched me like she was waiting for a reaction. Not in a playful way, but in a way that felt calculated. I did some dating on my own, mostly just out of that gut feeling that I was right to be suspicious. I looked up stories of people getting sick on dates, and some of the cases were terrifying. People intentionally messing with food to hurt or control their partners. The idea that someone could do that to someone they were supposed to like, it messed with my head. But I had no proof, no real reason to call her out. Then it got worse. I started noticing small changes in how Claudia acted after that night. She became distant, almost cold, but in this weird way that was still full of control. She'd jokingly suggest I should be more careful about what I ate, like she was reminding me who was in charge. The smile she gave me didn't reach her eyes anymore. It was like she was daring me to question her. I started pulling back, but she kept pressing, texting more, showing up randomly, asking invasive questions about who I talked to or where I went. It felt like that night was her way of warning me, not with words, but with something darker, something I couldn't shake off. I didn't want to admit it to myself, but I realized she wasn't just a weird date gone bad. She wanted to break me down, keep me close by making me weak and scared. One night, when I finally decided I couldn't handle it anymore, I went back through my texts and the little things she'd said, looking for a clue, anything that explained the shift. There were moments where she hinted at being able to take care of me, and looking back, it was a threat disguised as affection. It was sickening to realize I was never safe around her, not just physically but mentally too. The person who'd invited me to a cozy dinner was someone who used that moment to try and control me, to punish me for, I don't even know what. Maybe for not moving fast enough, maybe for asking too many questions, or maybe just because she wanted to see if she could. I stopped answering her calls, blocked her everywhere, and told a couple of close friends what happened. They were shocked, especially when I explained how I felt so sick and how she acted afterward. But it wasn't just about the food or the illness, it was about the whole twisted game she was playing, using something as simple as dinner to trap me in a nightmare. That night with Claudia didn't just leave me sick for a few hours. It left me with this heavy feeling that someone I trusted could turn something normal into something dangerous. It made me realize how close you can get to people before you see what they're really capable of, and how sometimes the things meant to bring you together can also tear you apart. So yeah, that dinner, it wasn't just a meal. It was a warning wrapped in a smile, and it took me way too long to see it. I thought I was just dating a normal guy. Brendan seemed like the kind of person you meet and immediately feel lucky to know. The kind of guy who remembered the little things you said, made you feel like you were the only person in the room, and acted like he genuinely cared about you. Our dates were easy, filled with laughs, and he was always so sweet and attentive. At first, I was convinced he was just different from the usual guys. Kind of rare, honestly. But then things started getting weird and honestly kind of scary. Not with me, but with everyone else. I didn't see it at first because Brendan was always so charming when we were alone. It wasn't until I met some of the people around him that I started piecing things together, like a puzzle with the edges missing. With friends, coworkers, or just random people he bumped into, Brendan's entire personality flipped. He wasn't the same guy at all. He was colder, sharper, and way more controlling. It was like two completely different people sharing one body. It hit me the first time I saw it happen. We were at a small get-together with some of his coworkers. I was standing off to the side, watching Brendan chat. At first, he smiled at me, reached over to grab my hand like he wanted me to know he was there for me. Then just seconds later, I caught him cutting down this one guy in front of everyone, talking in this way that was so cold and mocking it didn't even seem real. Like he was wearing a mask that snapped on and off at will. I didn't say anything, just watched. And I couldn't stop feeling like I didn't know who I was with anymore. Over the next few weeks, this pattern got worse. When it was just the two of us, Brendan was like this perfect boyfriend, thoughtful, funny, always texting me to check in or share something that made him think of me. But as soon as other people were around, he became someone else entirely. He twisted conversations, made people uncomfortable, and acted like he was in total control of every room. I couldn't figure out if he was playing a game or just really good at hiding parts of himself. The worst part was how expertly he managed to keep me in this bubble of sweetness while everyone else saw his dark side. It was like he had these different personalities locked behind separate doors, and he'd open whichever one served his purpose best. With me, it was the nice guy. With others, it was the manipulative guy. Sometimes I wondered if any of him was real at all. I started noticing how he would switch mid-conversation, like he was constantly sizing people up and deciding how to act. One minute he was cracking jokes and making everyone laugh, and the next he'd make this snide comment so quick and low that only the person targeted caught it. It was always like he was two steps ahead, playing some invisible game nobody else saw. One night, we were out with some of his friends, and he did something that made me freeze. There was a girl at the bar who clearly didn't like him, and instead of walking away or cooling things off, Brendan leaned in and started digging into her like he was trying to break her down piece by piece. But then, a moment later, he caught my eye and smiled like everything was fine, like it was all just a joke we shared. I felt like I was standing on a stage with him, but he was the only one who knew the script. That night, I left early and sat in my car for a long time, trying to make sense of it all. How could one person be so sweet and cruel, so warm and cold? Was I just imagining things? But every time I thought that, I remembered the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. A mix of something that felt like admiration and something darker, like he was figuring out how to keep me hooked while hiding the real him. I started watching him more carefully after that. Not in a paranoid way, but like I was trying to read a complicated book. I noticed how he talked differently depending on who he was with, the words he chose, how his smile would change from genuine to forced. He was always performing, always acting, and it wasn't just little things. The way he moved, how he made decisions, even how he made people feel around him. It all shifted depending on his audience. It wasn't long before I heard whispers from people I barely knew, warnings from friends of friends about Brendan's past. They said he could be charming, but you never really knew which Brendan you were getting. Some said he could gaslight you until you doubted your own memories. Others said he played people like chess pieces, and the ones closest to him were the ones who got caught in the worst traps. One day, I found myself alone with him after a night out. I could see in his eyes that part of him I'd seen in public, the calculating one, and I felt the chill that wasn't about the cold air. It was like I was staring at someone who wore a mask so low that even they forgot who they really were underneath. I realized then that Brendan wasn't just complicated. He was dangerous in how he manipulated the people around him. He wanted control, and he was willing to do whatever it took to get it. He made me feel special, like I was his world, but I was really just another piece on his board. The way he could charm me 1 minute and cut someone else down without missing a beat was sickening. It wasn't love or affection. It was a game, a performance designed to get what he wanted without ever showing his real self. I don't know how many people he's done this to before me. How many others fell for the sweet side and never saw the cold, ruthless part until it was too late. What scares me the most is how easy it is to be fooled when someone is good at pretending. Brendan wasn't just a liar. He was a master at creating a whole different life depending on who he needed to fool. So yeah, dating Brendan was like living in two different realities at once. The guy I thought I was falling for was just one character he played. And the one I couldn't stand was the one he showed everyone else to keep control, to get what he wanted. When you finally see that, it's hard not to feel like you wasted time on a stranger wearing your boyfriend's face. Moving in with Sheila was supposed to be the start of something new. Exciting, normal, the kind of thing people do when they think they've found someone worth taking a chance on. I wasn't even that worried about the whole living together thing at first. I mean, yeah, it's a big step, but she seemed chill, and honestly, I was just tired of living alone. Having someone around sounded better than coming home to an empty apartment every night. I was craving company, someone to share the daily grind with. Plus, splitting rent would help my bank account, which wasn't exactly thriving. The apartment was small but cozy, a typical two-bedroom in a neighborhood that wasn't great but wasn't terrible either. Sheila's name was already on the lease when I moved in, and she had been living there for about a year. Things started out fine. She showed me around, told me about the quirks of the place, and set up her stuff in the bedroom next to mine. We settled into a rhythm quickly enough. I thought we were just two people sharing a space, nothing more complicated than that. What I didn't realize was that I wasn't just sharing space. I was sharing it with someone who wanted to know everything about me, all the time. At first, it was little things. I'd leave my phone on the kitchen counter while grabbing something from the fridge, and when I came back, it'd be moved or worse, powered off. At first, I thought I must have done it myself without realizing, but it happened again and again. Then I noticed her acting distracted or oddly focused whenever I talked about certain topics, like I was accidentally revealing secrets I never meant to share. It made me uncomfortable, but I told myself maybe Sheila was just curious or nosy, nothing sinister. Then the noises started. At night, when everything was quiet, I'd hear soft clicks or faint buzzing. It was subtle, easy to ignore. I tried telling myself it was just the building settling or some electrical thing humming in the walls, but the sound seemed too deliberate. Sometimes I thought I caught a flicker of a tiny red light in the corner of a room, but I'd never find anything when I looked. One day, while cleaning the living room, I noticed a tiny hole behind the couch. It was the size of a coin and looked oddly placed. Curious, I crouched down and peered inside. My heart practically stopped when I saw a tiny glass lens staring back at me. A hidden camera. My mind raced as I pulled the couch away and started checking other parts of the room. In a smoke detector on the ceiling, there was another camera, small, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. Then behind the bookshelf, hidden between the spines of books, another one. It wasn't just one or two. There were cameras everywhere, all strategically placed where I spent the most time. The living room, the kitchen, even the hallway. I felt frozen. How long had she been watching me? When had she recorded? Why? That was just the start. I began searching the apartment more thoroughly. In the bathroom vent, there was a tiny microphone hidden in the slats, perfectly positioned to catch conversations. In my bedroom closet, behind a row of clothes, was yet another camera facing the bed. It was like my life had been turned into some kind of twisted reality show I never signed up for. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but I also wanted to understand why. Maybe it was some bizarre hobby or a warped idea of security, right? But deep down I knew better. These cameras weren't thrown together in a careless, half-assed way. This was meticulous, intentional, and invasive. Someone who respected privacy wouldn't hide lenses in bedrooms or bathrooms. This wasn't curiosity, it was control. I confronted Sheila one evening, heart pounding and voice trembling. I asked her straight up about the cameras. She laughed it off like I was being ridiculous, paranoid even. Said it was nothing serious, just security stuff. But I knew the difference. Security cameras outside the apartment. Fine. Hidden cameras inside private spaces. That's a violation, pure and simple. After that confrontation, things only got worse. She started showing up randomly when I was in the shower or just getting ready. I caught her once trying to access my laptop when I left it unattended. It wasn't just about watching anymore. It was digging. Searching for something in my personal files, in my emails, maybe even my passwords. I couldn't trust a single moment of privacy. Every day felt like walking on eggshells. I was constantly on edge, checking rooms for new cameras, unplugging strange devices, covering vents with towels. The apartment that was supposed to be my sanctuary turned into a trap where every word, every move was monitored. What made it even more unsettling was how normal Sheila acted in the daylight. She'd smile, make coffee, chat about her day like nothing was wrong, like she was the perfect roommate. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I was her private show, an unknowing star of her surveillance obsession. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I packed my things in the middle of the night and left as fast as I could, leaving behind the place that was supposed to be home. But the damage was already done. I didn't just lose a living situation. I lost a sense of safety. Knowing someone I trusted had been watching me in my most intimate moments made me feel like a ghost in my own life. The apartment felt like it was still breathing, still watching even after I left. I still wonder what Sheila did with all the footage. Does she keep it? Show it to others? Is it sitting on some device somewhere, waiting for her to relive it? The thought haunts me. The scariest part is how easy it was for her to hide it all. The tiny cameras, the microphones, technology that's small, cheap, and almost impossible to detect unless you know exactly what to look for. And how blind I was until it was way too late. Moving in with Sheila wasn't just moving in with someone new. It was stepping into a trap I didn't even know existed. A trap made of trust turned toxic, privacy turned invasion. And sometimes the people we let closest to us can be the ones who hurt us the most.